like to call to order this meeting of the City of Waynesboro Planning Commission for Tuesday, April 19th, 2020. And I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, if you would all stand, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, fellow commissioners, have you had a chance to look over the agenda? And is someone interested in making a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion we adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor of adopting tonight's agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Has everyone had a chance to review and approve and take a look at the meetings for the meeting held February 22nd, 2022? And does someone want to make a motion to approve them or have any comments on them?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Could I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor of accepting and approving the minutes of the meeting held February 22nd, 2022?
Aye.
Aye.
Everyone not in favor? Minutes are approved. We have time for a public comment period for items not on the agenda. I'm assuming you're all here for one juicy agenda item.
That's a good assumption.
Okay, so we are going to have a public hearing for a request by Wells Enterprises Construction, agent for Valley Covenant Church of God, owner, to rezone 0 Stonewall Drive, Waynesboro, Virginia, tax map number 42-12-8 from RS12 single family residential large lot to RS7 single family residential small lot. And staff is going to present us with the issue at hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. The public hearing tonight is on an application to rezone the parcel that you mentioned from RS12 to RS7. The location is here in Ward D, located between Rosser Avenue, West Main Street, and Ludewitt Boulevard. You can see it's sort of an L-shaped track. It sits just to the south of Bellevue Road, and then it's surrounded also by Sumter and Stonewall Jackson and Davis Roads here, and Vedette on the east side. The proposed zoning change is from RS12, which is single-family residential large lot. It allows single-family detached residences only, with a minimum lot square footage of 12,000 square feet. The requested new zone is RS7, single-family residential small lot. This is also single-family detached homes only, but with a minimum lot of 7,000 square feet. Both districts are established to accommodate single-family residential neighborhoods. The main difference is just the lot size and the setbacks, which affect the number of lots that it's possible to get in a tract in a subdivision. As you can see, the surrounding uses are all single-family residential, and then vacant land as well that's currently platted for other subdivisions. So this is the only lot in this area that is currently not platted. To the north, single-family residences on Bellevue. To the south and east, single-family residences on Sumter and Vedette. And then to the west, we have the Silver Creek subdivision, and then to the southwest, the Creekwood Village subdivision. And I've stuck on here sort of a crude drawing of the roads that are platted as parts of those subdivisions so you can get some idea of what's going on there. And there's a right-of-way platted across the creek here in case of a future connection between them, but that would involve a rezoning of Silver Creek or a re-subdivision of it, which they have not applied for. So, and it'd be fairly expensive. I kind of doubt that'll happen. The subject parcel is a wooded lot. Is again located between the existing residences. Current zoning of the area is RS12. To the west is RS7, the southwest RG5, and some RMF. And then a number of 2 streets worth of RS12 in here, and then a number of streets of RS7 just to the north. And then to the south, mostly RS12 as well. The applicants presented us with this conceptual drawing of what the subdivision would look like. To clarify, the application tonight is only a public hearing for the rezoning, so this changes the entitlement that the applicant or that the owner will have from this point forward, but they do not have a subdivision application in yet. And what that means is that they will not have done sufficient engineering to answer perhaps all your very detailed questions about engineered elements. So the site plan in question is just a concept plan. It shows essentially the max density at which they've been able to figure out how to lay out the site with our current regulations. They've managed to come up with a drawing here that has 61 lots and a density of 3.1 units per acre, with some areas reserved for stormwater management. Again, those have not been engineered yet, so it's tough to say exactly how large those will be. It's a fairly low site, so my guess is that they'll have to do quite a bit of stormwater work. Because if it is rezoned to RS7, they will be required to provide a Class A landscaping buffer between along the edge of the property wherever it borders an existing RS12 zone. You can't really see it very well on this map, but there's also a number of unplatted alleys. So there's, I believe, a 10-foot alley platted here between those homes and the ones on Bellevue. Probably some of the neighbors here can correct me if I'm wrong. And then a 20-foot undeveloped alley between those homes and the ones here on Sumter. Neither of those alleys have any improvements in them, though there are quite a few utilities in them. The applicant just provided us with this drawing, which they've colored and taken off some of the detail to try to make it a little bit easier to read. The brown here is the setback envelope, so that's the possible area within which the house could be constructed. It's not a house size, obviously. The comprehensive plan designates this area for low-density residential. Low-density residential, according to the comprehensive plan, is meant to accommodate 3 to 4 units per acre. RS7 district fits in the low-density residential according to our comprehensive plan, so we believe that this complies with the comprehensive plan. As far as the traffic, they performed a traffic analysis, which was validated by the VDOT Stanton district. It was performed based on a denser townhouse configuration that the applicant had started with that staff didn't support, so it's going to have slightly higher numbers than what would be generated by the concept plan that you're being presented with tonight in the rezoning. But in the plan that they presented, they were generating about 600 trips per day, and they distributed them like this. I think probably there should be a larger number distributed to West Main and fewer up there. Relatively low number of trips overall. As I said, VDOT Stanton District doesn't find any problems with traffic generation. All the adjacent roads will still be well under our sort of 1,000 BPD threshold for quiet residential streets, except for Vidette. Obviously, Vidette is the collector in that neighborhood. Current vehicles per day is 3,900, so I would guess that about probably 300 or so of these trips would be headed towards Vidette and would be added on to those. Vidette's max capacity is about 8,000, so it would still be close to the 50% capacity number. As far as the ability of the city to service it in other areas, we have sufficient water and sewer capacity. As you all know, water plant and the sewer plant have significant excess capacity to handle more growth. Though there are various issues with the delivery systems and the sewage system. That said, this is sort of small in comparison to a lot of the other developments going on at the moment, and we think that the sewer upgrades will be triggered by an industrial rezoning, most likely. But currently in this area, sufficient capacity exists for this rezoning. There is an abandoned pipe currently across the site. It's a former water main, and the applicant will have to remediate that. And then as far as the schools, Dr. Castle, I check with them every time, we have a large rezoning like this just to verify that what's been true is still true. And he confirms that we have excess capacity at all the schools that would be affected. Again, our school enrollment has been flat for many years. We've had steady population growth, steady development, and it's been about enough to offset the decline in student population from aging, which is taking place across the country. Staff are recommending approval of this rezoning for a number of reasons. Again, I think lots of folks here tonight are here to speak against the rezoning, and so they're going to share with you more of their experience of the area and how this will affect them. The staff recommendation is just based on what we feel are the values that the elected officials and the citizens have put forward in various plans. And in terms of encouraging growth, this obviously accommodates additional growth, additional population growth, bringing more people into the city, more people that shop at our shops, more people get involved in the town. But we believe that this is a managed rate of change. As the city grows, we must expect it to densify. There will be more people moving in, more places have to be built. But we've largely tried to keep that rate of change to sort of one rung on the zoning ladder for it. And so in this case, we feel RS7 is just one rung above what's around it. With affordable housing, we've talked about that quite a bit lately. This is not obviously any kind of subsidized housing. This is just market rate housing. But building sufficient market rate housing to capture demand is a significant part of maintaining a low cost of living, an attractive community. And then efficiency in service delivery. In terms of where we would want growth to go, this is sort of an ideal location in that it's right in the center of the city. It's infill, in between our largest infrastructure systems. Certainly as city staff, if we were trying to run an efficient system that keeps rates low, we would prefer that to growth at the periphery. And then lastly, compatibility with the comprehensive plan. We feel that this does meet the comprehensive plan as it exists. We have to take any questions for staff, and then I believe the applicant is here, and his engineer and representative, and then we'll have a public hearing.
Okay, so just a technical question. I'll have to open the public hearing before the applicant comes up, right?
Yes, before the applicant comes up.
Okay. So can we ask you questions before we open the public
Yes.
hearing? Okay.
Luke?
Sorry, we're normally a little more informal if there's fewer people here.
I think
But
that's figure 1 you had, the one before that?
this one?
No, the other one?
This one?
That one there. So, to the north of that property is, what is it? RS12.
Yes.
To the east of the property, it's RS12. To the south of the property, it's RS12.
Yes.
To the west of the property, it's RS7, and that was, I assume, done some time ago.
Yes.
And although it's, I guess I'd say directly east, more southeast, that is the RG5, which is a little different but akin to an RS7.
I would say that RG5 is 2 steps up from RS12. So RG5 would be sort of another step up from RS7. It also allows townhomes and attached single-family homes in addition to single-family detached.
As far as size of lots.
Yeah, and slightly smaller lots. So RG5 would allow a single-family home on a 5,000 square foot lot as opposed to a 7,000 square foot lot, right?
You talked about a buffer
Yes.
around this. Who maintains that buffer?
The applicant would be required to provide for the maintenance of that buffer. They could do that either through a restrictive covenant on the properties, or we would prefer, the staff would prefer that they did it through the homeowners association, which would be required, which would also already be maintaining the stormwater facilities. So that tends to be what we push for. It's not a very big buffer. Again, it's 10 feet. It's not huge.
But
It's planted.
you have no guarantee that 20 years from now, there won't be anybody to maintain that buffer.
I mean, if it's put in the homeowners association documents, then, I mean, it would be in there as a requirement.
You're going to have a homeowners association?
They'll have
They
to.
talk to you about it?
So at this point, with all these developments required to comply with the Chesapeake Bay Act and having to have all the stormwater infrastructure, we're having to put together maintenance agreements for their stormwater infrastructure for every neighborhood. So all of them at this point functionally are required to have HOAs, yeah. Unless the city's agreed to take their stormwater infrastructure, which we are not doing at all. Yeah.
The water and sewer system, we talked today, and any issues would involve the transmission lines, not the size of the sewer plant or the water plant.
Right. Both the sewer plant and the water plant were built to allow for quite a bit of excess capacity, and so we're fine in terms of pumping water out of the ground and taking care of it at the end. I didn't want to say that there's absolutely no capacity issues, because there are bottlenecks in the system that the city's working through. That said, I don't think any of them are specific to this site. Most of them, for instance, there's sort of a sewer bottleneck along Arch Avenue. We have some issues with delivery further south around the interstate. But those are all things that have mostly been triggered by larger developments. So I wouldn't say that there's anything specific to this development. No.
Right. Now, we've done a number of these RS7 subdivisions
Yes.
in the town. If you go out 254, you have Evershire, you have the back of Claybrook. I forget the name of the one next to Claybrook.
Evershire? Or, that one's RG5. Anna Marie?
Evershire, the one west of Claybrook.
Anna Marie?
No.
Ivy Commons?
The one on the same side that Claybrook's on.
Ivy Commons.
Okay.
Yes.
And of course, they've got that all
Right, cleared out.
ready to go. Evershire's ready to go. You've got one next to the one you mentioned west of there that they haven't started on. And Anna Marie has changed some of their subdivision to RS7.
Yes.
And then you have the one that's RG5.
Right, Creekwood Village right here.
And if I recall, that was about 260 lots,
212, yeah.
okay? The one next to,
That's a mix of
Claybrook,
attached
west of
homes.
Claybrook was 160 some?
Just to the north of it,
Yes,
that one's about 200 also.
200. The one further beyond, was that the one that was 160?
No, that one was 80,
80?
yes.
And how about Anna Marie?
Anna Marie, I'm not sure. That one's been platted for so long. But I want to say they still have at least 50 or 60 lots left to go in that one.
But we got a ton of RS7s
Right.
that are in the process of being, in fact, ground's broken on a number of them, but I'd say 500
I'd say,
that have not been built on yet.
I bet we have, well, it depends on what stage you're counting, but I would say probably 500 lots on preliminary plats that do not have a final plat yet is probably a good number.
And I guess the thing that bothers me the most about that I went through the area,
Right.
and it's bigger lots. And I'm not saying what's going to be built on the RS7 is not going to be nice homes, just smaller lots. But all around this, we have the RS7 with generally brick homes. There are some with vinyl siding, or part brick, part vinyl siding, probably the majority of them, or more
Yeah.
over that.
Vinyl siding is very durable. It's great construction material.
Okay.
It looks, brick looks nicer. It's not better.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want me to, is there sort of, you want me to comment on that, or
No,
just
well,
sort of general thought on it, or?
do you want to comment on it?
Not necessarily, I mean, unless you have a question related to it, sure. I mean,
I
just,
wasn't sure what your question was either.
I'm happy to, I mean, in terms of, if
We
you're,
have a lot of developable lots.
sure, we definitely have a lot of developable lots, yeah.
Of this size.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think so. I think, I hesitate, I look to the market to tell me and folks that are putting their own money into development prospects, to tell me how many that we need, because that suggests to me that there are people that are buying, that suggests to me that there are people that want a home. And so you have a willing buyer, you have a willing seller, you have people that want to live on these lots that are saying so with their money. You have people that want to sell the lot and want to provide it for them. So when you're talking about a zoning, you're talking about a government intervention to stop a transaction happening between two willing parties. So you need a compelling public purpose. And so from my perspective, I would just say, is there a compelling public purpose here to stop folks who need houses from getting houses?
Well,
And I would say in this case that that's going to be up to you all and the comments from the neighbors around there if this isn't an appropriate spot. But just from the city's perspective, we would prefer that lots got built here rather than at Ivy Commons or even Anna Marie or any of those places. Like I said, the periphery, the last house is always the hardest to service. And oftentimes you end up in cities with this situation where you have the worst possible configuration. You have low density in the center that's now impossible to grow, even though that's where the demand is. And that's where it would be most efficient to build because there are people there to object to it. And then at the periphery, you end up building more and more and more. And that, to us, is the worst possible situation. So, that's why I would support it. That said, I understand that folks live there already. They have an established expectation. And so that's why we want to be gradual about it. I'm not here standing here suggesting that we build a bunch of apartment buildings right here or anything. But that would be my perspective on what you're commenting on. Yeah.
The RS7, that conforms with our comprehensive plan.
Yes.
I thought you said that RS 12 was what the comprehensive plan put on it.
No, the comprehensive plan doesn't designate a zone, it designates sort of a range. So we have low-density residential, just generally considered to be the RS7 and the RS12. We have medium-density residential, which most of the specifications of medium-density residential are meant to match up with RG5. And then you have high-density residential, which is really meant to match up with RMF. So we would, the comprehensive plan is supposed to be a general guide. We would consider this to be reasonably within that guide. I mean, the comprehensive plan probably needs to be updated anyway. We're using the 2008 land use map, which is based on a very different condition. But yeah, I would say that it still fits in there.
Am I correct in saying, Luke, that the difference between RS7 and RS12 is about 20 lots?
I think in this case it is, yeah. Again, it depends on
The
setbacks where
layout
they can build, but I believe they can get about 40 lots in there in the RS12, and they can
under the current zoning?
current zoning, yeah.
And that's a by right?
By right, yeah.
Okay.
Nothing doesn't come to you.
'Cause what I'm looking at is you have a nice demarcation of that neighborhood currently.
Mhm.
With the RS12, if you include the subject parcel,
Right.
you have a nice demarcation where within this confines, everything's the same.
Mhm.
Outside of those confines is where you have your RS7s and all that.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of the folks who are here are going to bring up, that it's, it's consistent with their expectations for the neighborhood. So I think that's something that you'll have to listen to and consider for sure. Again, from my perspective, if with that kind of thinking eventually locks you into is that nothing can ever change. I mean, there's got to be some way for there to be general gradual densification over time as the area grows, but it doesn't have to be now, it doesn't have to be here. It's up to you all.
How many lots is in the R7 just to the west of that? The one above Creekside was the Silver Creek?
Gosh, I am not sure. I want to say that I know that they had a trigger for a bridge upgrade at 60 lots. So I want to say the whole development was something like 90. But they've built at least 40 of them now. Okay, I know they have a few more platted, so there may be, yeah.
And Creekside was
It's a little over 200, really.
200 lots.
Yeah.
So you got 300 lots
Just to the west.
just to the west of that.
Yes. Any other questions for me? Yes.
I was just wondering, we've seen a lot of concepts and proposals for the RS12. Do we have any of those same developed ideas for the RS7?
The concepts you've seen are for RS7.
That is RS7.
Yeah.
Wait, where am I? I'm going the wrong direction. Yeah, so this is under the RS7. So the RS12, probably the most efficient layout would be roughly the same road layout, but they would need to get 75 feet of frontage all around, and they would need to get to those 12,000 square foot lots. They probably have to have quite a bit more frontage here. Yeah, they'd end up with somewhere around 40 lots. Yeah, so you're really talking about a difference of about 20 lots. Yeah.
20 lots.
Okay.
I'll sit down if no more questions for me.
For now.
All right.
Okay, I would like to open the public hearing for request by Wells Enterprises Construction, agent for Valley Covenant Church of God, owner to rezone 0 Stonewall Drive, Waynesboro, Virginia, tax map number 42-12-8 from RS12, single-family residential large lot, to RS7, single-family residential small lot. And I would like to keep in mind that if you want to approach the podium, please give your name and address, and your time will be limited to 3 minutes. You'll start when the light is green. When you have 30 seconds left, it will go yellow. When it goes red, it's time to wind it up, and if you don't, I'm going to send Bobby after you. And you get one shot, so you don't get to come back up if you don't say everything you want when you come up. And then I think we can make a little time at the end if you're not on the list and you haven't spoken, then you could approach the podium. We're a little flexible here. And
Excuse me, are you allowed to ask questions, or are you just giving your opinion?
Up to you.
well, if you can do it in 3 minutes, I say you say whatever you want. Okay, so I'm going to open the said public hearing, and I'm going to invite the applicant to approach the podium.
Good evening. My name is Steve Driver, and I'm with Terry Engineering and Land Solutions. And I have some color copies here of this, what Luke had on the, that might be helpful, and I'll pass these out.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, our address is 2374 Stewart's Draft Highway. And we were engaged by Julian Wells with Wells Enterprises Construction to evaluate this lot for development. Actually, we have done quite a bit of engineering study on the property. And so the layout that we provided is very meaningful. And a couple things I would like to highlight. There was some discussion earlier about the difference in the number of units. If you get with the RS12 zoning, we could achieve about 43 lots, and with the current R7 zoning, it's 61. So the difference is just 18 units. Okay. There's some things I'd like to point out regarding this development. I don't know if you guys have walked it or not, but it's mostly wooded. In some areas there's a little bit open more than others. But there's a substantial amount of water, stormwater, that comes down from the upland properties. It flows down through Summercrest Avenue and also Carmen Avenue. And what happens is it just flows through the site. And I expect, there's probably some residents that live back in the area, but I expect sometimes they get significant flooding back there, especially for behind the lots along Sumter Avenue. What development of this property would do would pretty much reduce that flooding problem, because it would detain water that would be undetained water off of the upland areas. So that's a good thing. It would actually reduce the flooding in that area. The other thing is there's a pipeline that runs sort of east to west, an old pipeline that I guess the city put in years ago. It's a transite pipe. I don't know if you guys know what a transite pipeline is.
Yep,
But it's actually composed of asbestos.
yep, no, exactly.
So it's really not a very environmentally sensitive pipe, but it's in the ground as we speak. But one thing this project would do would be to take that pipeline out. Okay, so that's going to be an improvement with the environment. The other thing this project does is it provides a little bit of an enhancement to community by interconnectivity. It would connect Davis Road, which is to the south, all the way up to Summercrest and Carmen Avenue to the north, and also Robert E. Lee Road to the west or to the east. So those are all pluses for a community. Actually, people can walk through the neighborhoods then, walk their dog for exercise. And the other thing too, it improves safety from a fire and rescue perspective. It now enables an ambulance or a fire truck to pass through that area. Now, whether or not this is an advantage or a disadvantage, I guess development of the property would probably displace a handful of homeless people. You can walk back in the woods and you can see that homeless people tend to hang out back there different times of the year. So it definitely would have an impact on that. And then as far as the lot sizes go, you can see 18 lots is not a whole lot of difference. And the reason for that is this property, or this parcel, is kind of L-shaped. The way that Luke pointed out, it's L-shaped. So when you try to fit these lots in there, you end up with a lot of quite a number of lots that are bigger than 60 feet, which is the minimum frontage in an R7 district. So even though it's an R7 zoning, many of the lots are sized, which would be to a higher zoning, just because of the shape of the development. Regarding water and sewer, actually development of the subdivision will actually enhance the water distribution flow in that area. And the reason for that, when you create loops in a water system, it improves the pressure and your flow rates. So even some of the current flow rates at the hydrants, or what they are today, would actually increase some with this network water system that would go in this development. Sewer line, no problem there. The sewer that runs behind the lots on Sumter is an 8-inch gravity line, and the state minimum slope on that's 0.4%. We never designed less than 0.5%. But at 0.4%, an 8-inch line will carry about 500,000 gallons a day, which is probably 4 times what this whole area would ever experience. So no issues with capacity. The one thing that's important to consider here is that, as I discussed, there's not a whole lot of increase in lots with the R7 zoning, but any increase is beneficial. And the reason for that is this parcel has some encumbrances on it, and one of them is a Columbia gas easement that runs along the western line. So we have to make sure that we avoid the Columbia gas easement, because the deed language precludes any grading within that easement. And the other thing is there is some rock outcrop on the property that you can see. So development of it will require probably some rock excavation. And so what we're trying to do is come up with a way that this property can be sensitively developed, but yet make it feasible to do so. And we think that it would be, the R7 zoning would be an improvement, and it would work for the city's advantage. I'm here to answer any questions you might have. So I'll be in the back. If the public has questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
It seems to me that maybe the best thing to do, I think I can invite you back up to answer
Okay.
questions. Or is that?
You're allowed to invite the applicant back up at the end, yeah, if you want.
Okay, at least for our questions.
To answer
Because
questions,
We might
yeah.
have more after we hear from the community. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, so I reserve the right to ask you to come back up.
Okay, thank you.
Shannon, I have 3 written comments. Do you want me to read those at the
That-
beginning or at the end?
You can just read them now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so first comment is Jane Painter, 2308 Bellevue Road. We are writing to state that we oppose this plan. We feel that the construction of more homes in this area will lead to an increase in traffic as well as more crowded neighborhoods. And I have John Lynn, 2232 Bellevue Road. Says, I have lived at 2232 Bellevue Road for 45 plus years and object to the rezoning by Wells Enterprise Construction. Existing adjacent streets that surround 0 Stonewall Drive are all zoned RS12. By making this change to RS7, this would increase the population density and cause safety concerns with a significant increase of traffic flow within adjacent streets and potential student impact at the local elementary school. In addition, wildlife has also been observed in the area due to the location of a natural spring on the property. planned development of the property should consider the continuing impact to local wildlife habitat. And I have a comment from Robert Ullman, 2417 Bellevue Road. Says, I do not oppose growth, but the concentration of more homes in a small area creates obvious concerns. First, more congestion in a residential neighborhood creating traffic and safety concerns. Second, lack of infrastructure, such as schools, and the loss of green space due to smaller lots. Third, the current construction on Route 340 for various commercial businesses will already add a significant impact to traffic. Fourth, I realize Wells Enterprise Construction will profit more from the additional housing units. Likewise, the City Council likes the attraction of more tax revenue, but neither of these benefit the citizens of Waynesboro who reside in the 22980 zip code. I request that the zoning change not be approved and the original plan be adhered to, which will and could please all parties with a valued interest. Those are all the written comments.
So, excuse my, keep asking questions, but we never have this many people at meetings. You should all come all the time. It's really fun. Do I have a list?
We've got the list. We can call them up.
All right, if you want to call them up, that'd be great.
All right. Start with Marcia Berg. Good. Be disappointed if you didn't.
I know. My name is Marcia Berg, and my husband and I have lived at 2316 Bellevue Road for 32 years. While we've loved the woods, we knew it might someday be developed. In the early 90s, Steve Garvey, a developer, and his investor let the neighbors know that they were considering building 26 homes on that 18 acres. They came back a month or two after exploring and told us they would not be buying the property because of the karst, underground springs, limestone caves, and sinkholes that are on the property because it would cost too much to get the preparation of the land as well as the buildings. On Bellevue, we see areas of standing water at the end of Carmen as well as pools at the intersection of Summercrest and Carmen after even moderate rain. There are cattails growing at the end of Carmen where a proposed entrance to the new development would be. The land there is a marsh with a channel of ever-running water from rain and the springs near and on the property. I have spoken with Headwaters Soil and Water Conservation, the Department of Environmental Quality, and the Army Corps of Engineers about the water, karst, and caves. They've told me that permits must be applied for and granted before any work can start. I did send photos of the end of Carmen to Mr. Pirro of the Army Corps of Engineers, and it is indeed marshland and will have to have his authorization for any work to be done. Talking with neighbors, we've discovered the majority have one or more sump pumps and have had water in their basements. One home next to Carmen has 2 sump pumps that run 24/7 because of the underground spring. They've had to put in a whole house generator for fear that they'll lose their power. The water sounds that come from that pipe outside of their house sounds like a waterfall. It's not a trickle. We have had water coming up from the ground in our backyard, and on occasion, one of our sump pumps will just run without there having ever been any rain. So we have a feeling we might have a spring underneath us. So we're already dealing with Silver Creek sending water down the streets, even though they have 2 retention ponds. We have underground springs, and now we may be dealing with more water problems from impermeable surfaces like the roads, sidewalks, etc., and the 61 homes that, as it was said in the agenda proposal, that they would be tightly arranged, the 61 homes, lots. It's not just Bellevue that has these issues, all the surrounding streets do. The Carmen Avenue entrance should also be addressed, as he was saying, to Miss Utilities because the company, the gas company that owns a 20-inch active natural gas line goes behind that property, and also Carmen will go over that property. The surrounding neighborhoods will feel the impact of any development on a property that has already been deemed unsuitable for 26 houses, much less 60. We know our sanctuary for the animals couldn't last. RS-12 seems the better option rather than a tightly arranged RS-7 development that would bring more issues to the established neighborhoods as well as the new. So therefore, I ask you to vote no.
Thank you very much.
Ron Brown. Apologize for getting this name.
I'm Ron Brower, and I live at 616 Sumter Road. I have one of the largest lots that back up this property. Back when H.C. Hensley was the executor for the Kingsbury estate, I looked at purchasing this because I didn't want neighbors behind me. And I was told for $300,000 homes or $600,000 in cash, I could buy that piece of property. I wish 24 years ago I had bought that property, but I didn't. Now I have to contend, or will have to contend with this. I'm not opposed to the R12 size lots so that everything is concentric around it. However, with the roads that are planned, it's going to cause increased traffic in our area, which my fiance and I and our dog walk nightly, that we do not need that traffic in our neighborhood. So that's kind of where we stand. My concern primarily is the style homes that's going to be built in this complex and the average cost. Does anybody have any idea?
There's no way for this. We have
Much higher level.
with discriminatory housing acts and so forth, we can't make any kind of rule that would affect the cost of the housing. So we're only dealing with the size of the lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, I am concerned with the size of the lots being reduced to put in more homes. The 47 homes that were anticipated, I could live with that, but I'm not for the 61 additional lots.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Ingrid Meadows.
Good evening. Does this thing work? I'm Ingrid Meadows. I live at 600 Sumter Road, which, if you notice on this plan, is probably the most impacted lot on the whole plan, but that's beside the point. I had this all written out, and I will try to be cohesive, but after hearing the presentations, I have additional comments. I oppose the rezoning of this property from R12 to R7. I do believe that a property owner has the right to develop their property. However, I do not believe that they should be given carte blanche to change existing zoning to a higher density merely to line their own pockets without regard for or consideration of surrounding property owners. And here's where I put a note about the connectivity. We don't have any problem getting around our neighborhoods as they are right now. This parcel is currently zoned R12 for a reason. It is supposed to be developed to be compatible with the existing neighborhood. This is an established, quiet, older neighborhood whose homeowners, as you can see by the turnout tonight, would prefer it to remain so. This rezoning application and proposed development of a minimum of 61 houses would have a serious detrimental effect on me, my neighbors, and neighbors nearby not directly adjacent to this property, i.e., the increase in traffic on Vidette Avenue, Bellevue Road, Sumter Road, Davis Road, Carmen Avenue, to name just a few of the connecting roads, the increased air, noise, land, and light pollution that accompanies high-density development. And I know you all don't think this is high-density development, but it sure seems like it to me. The strain on the city infrastructure, including the already understaffed police department, not to mention the impact on what appears to be a thriving ecosystem of multiple species of fauna, including at least 28 species of birds that we have documented. I hear the city planner saying that there is a need for additional housing in the city of Waynesboro. And after listening to the presentations, it seems like there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of building lots available already. Okay, skip that part. I could support the current R12 zoning with the appropriate number of new homes being built and with an increased size of buffers as well. A 10-foot buffer, it may as well not even be there as far as buffering anybody from the development. The proposal before us tonight is, in my opinion, incompatible with the surrounding neighborhoods, inconsiderate of me and my neighbors, and not consistent with a well-thought-out, comprehensive city plan which the citizens of Waynesboro deserve. In addition, I have brought a petition signed by Waynesboro residents, some of whom could not be here in person, and I'd be happy to give those to you at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Dan Meadows?
If you want to give me the petition, I can pass it up to the planning commission if you get it.
Good evening, I'm Dan Meadows. I too live at 600 Sumter Road, and I just want to say I really appreciate the thoughtful questions that you guys asked at the beginning, so I appreciate the fact that you guys have really looked at this plan before this meeting tonight. We had to ramp this little community thing going on here pretty quickly because we didn't really know what was going on more than a month ago. So there are 108 signatures so far on the petition, and I don't believe anybody that's contacted anyone in this neighborhood has thought this was a good idea, especially anyone that has property that abuts the development, which is all R12. And it just doesn't seem right. It seems incongruent with what is around that neighborhood right now. Additionally, because of where our lot is, our house is the one that is right on the edge of the Robert E. Lee Avenue. And when Carmen Avenue is connected to Robert E. Lee Avenue, a thoroughfare will be created from 250 straight past the side of my house and right behind my neighbor John's house, who has an 11-year-old kid, and will dump back onto Vedette. So it doesn't actually divert any traffic off of Vedette. It's still going to wind up down at that same intersection at Rosser. A neighbor of ours at the corner right across from the Christian Science Church lost a tree a month ago from somebody who failed to make the curve, as many people do at that corner, and now has placed large field stones in his yard to prevent his house from being hit. We hear motorcycles, we hear loud music all night going up and down Vedette. The city apparently is unable to police that road. And now we're going to create a shortcut because it's 2 blocks up from Sheets. They'll see the light. Well, let's just turn here. I know a shortcut back through this neighborhood, and they're going to be flying by my house in the middle of the night on their motorcycles with the music being loud. And we moved here 4 years ago, and it really was not the expectation that we thought we were going to have in this neighborhood. It's a great neighborhood. We like to walk our dogs too. We sometimes scurry across Vedette and go to the neighborhood on the other side, or we walk around the little bit of neighborhood we have. It just feels like you're really creating a bad problem for the folks that are already there. Anyway, I'm opposed to it, obviously, and I hope you guys will consider voting this down. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
John Fisk. We probably ought to clarify too, so folks know that the Planning Commission only makes a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council has to actually pass the rezoning, so there will be another public hearing in a month.
Thank you for the information. John Fisk, I live at 612 Vedette Avenue. My property is bordered by Vedette and Robert E. Lee. The concern that we have, when my wife and I first saw this, was instantly about our 11-year-old son. And with increased traffic, it's just, our concern is his safety. We lived on B Street, and 2.5 years ago, we moved to Vedette Avenue. We love the larger lot size. We love the neighborhood, the established neighborhood. As a matter of fact, the owner of our house had lived there for 50 years. She was the original owner of the house. And we've got a great neighborhood, lovely neighbors. And we understand that any development is going to increase traffic. Traffic for 41 houses or 42 homes is a lot lower than 61. And I know the traffic study was done minimally, and that's with the idea that Vedette's going to carry the majority of the traffic. But like Dan said, if people want to miss a light and they see there's a shortcut down Carmen onto Robert E. Lee, guess what? They're going to take it. And so that increases traffic flow around my house as well. My wife and I sat and talked about this for a bit, and we're both opposed to the zoning change. We knew moving in that eventually it was going to be developed, and development happens. Progress moves. And we're not opposed to any type of development. We just want it to be developed responsibly. We believe that in RS12, keeping it RS12 would be in line with responsible development, especially in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Janice Gibson.
Hello, I'm Janice Gibson. I live at 2216 Bellevue with my husband. We've been there about 28 years, so we are on the very end. Like, we kind of lucked out. We're on the end where we get part of the woods and all that, and we knew that it possibly could be rezoned at one time. So we've been lucky. But now that it's come to this, I just feel like money's not everything, and just because something can be done doesn't necessarily mean it should be done. As you can tell by the majority of people that got up and spoke, we've lived there. That's like our home. My husband and I hope to retire soon there. And I don't look forward to retiring to somewhere where I have to listen to construction 24/7 for years to come. I don't know how long this development would take. I don't know if the barrier would do any good. From what they're saying, 10 feet doesn't seem like a lot to me. Also, aesthetically, if you've got R12 throughout the neighborhood, pretty much, why would you change that? If you've got all these other developments coming up that are R7, there's plenty of homes for those people that want small lots with homes. Leave something for the folks like us that like the larger lots. Enjoy our gardening. Enjoy the wildlife. I just wanted to say that I do oppose the rezone.
Thank you very much.
Andy Kearney.
Hi, I'm Andy Kearney. I live at 608 Vedette Avenue. I oppose the rezoning. Hadn't planned on speaking tonight, so I don't have anything prepared. In the map there, I don't really have any buffer, so I'm assuming that when people move in, as they eventually will, it's going to happen, I'll be able to lean over my back fence and talk to them. And I'll tell them that I came down here and said, you guys should have bigger yards. I want my neighbors to have regular sized yards. Now, whether they have, big yards or small yards, that is up to you all. And I appreciate the service you guys provide by coming and serving on the planning committee. That's not something I would do, and I do appreciate that. I realize that change is going to come to my neighborhood, and that's the way that goes. Woods don't stay woods forever. But I think R12 is the right fit for our neighborhood.
Thank you very much.
That's everyone I have signed up. If you want to open it up to anyone else.
Is there anyone else who wants to come up and give us your thoughts? I think we're good. So,
You bring the developer back up?
do we have additional questions for the developer?
Yes, I have a couple of questions
Okay.
for the engineer.
I'm going to call my reserved right to speak to the engineer again.
Just, the Columbia Gas easement, what is the width of that?
Don't have
I
that,
think I've got an answer back here.
no, the
The
width
width of
easement.
the easement itself, not the
Yeah,
pipe.
it's,
supposed to be 25 feet on each side.
yeah, it's drawn to scale on the development plan. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
You had talked about the water runoff flow from above coming through this
Yes.
property.
yes.
What engineering or plans do you have for handling that water?
Typically what we do is what they call pre and post development computations. So because that water comes into this property, we can't make it not come into the property. So what we do is we look at different ways that we can mitigate that water. Now, we're not required by code to treat it because it's not coming from the developed parcel, but we still have to manage it. And that's what's going to be a benefit for the adjoining developers, because it's rather than having uncontrolled stormwater come down that ditch behind the large lots there on Bellevue, that will probably decrease. In fact, by state code, we're required to do several things. We can't allow post-development runoff to exceed pre, number one. Number two, we have to make sure we meet MS 19, which is adequate channel. So any water leaving our site needs to meet the MS 19 criteria. So there's a lot of things that are put in place that will help to mitigate stormwater runoff. Now, one thing I will comment on too, that one lady here, she mentioned springs or trouble with water in basements and things like that. I've done development all over the state of Virginia, tidewater everywhere. And what we've discovered is actually when we have properties that have this problem, when it's actually developed, because we're putting in storm drains and drainage ditches and things like that, it actually changes that groundwater flow and actually dries up the surface quite a bit. So development of the property, whether it's R12 or R7, it's going to improve, I think, some problems that people currently have with basement water intrusion. And then there's one lady, I forget which one it was, that commented about the Army Corps and permits like that. I just want to know if she was looking for a job, because I think I'll hire her. She did a good job. Oh, yeah, there she is. No, she's good. Yeah, we're well aware of those, and anything we do in a property, we'll have to study those things and make sure we have the appropriate environmental permitting. That would include wetlands evaluation, also geologic test bores. We always study for karst areas too, because we want to know where that is as much as anybody else does. We don't want to build a house over a karst hole, for example. So yeah, all those studies would be done to make sure that what we're doing is viable.
And that will then be, the plan for that will then be submitted at the time any final plat or any plat is submitted for approval.
Yeah, that would be through the city community development. All that would have to be approved by the city, before we go to final plat.
And I think that was, I was asking a question hoping that you'd done some of that preliminary.
Oh, yeah, we've done a lot of that, yeah. Yeah, so we've done a lot of research on the property. Again, it's our feeling that 18 units is not going to be significantly in upkeep over an R12, because a lot of these lots, because the shape of the land, are going to be bigger than an R7 lot anyway. But we feel like it's really what it comes down to is price point. So if you have fewer lots on a parcel, your price point goes up. So it really comes down to what market are you trying to reach. And price point for existing zoning is going to be much higher than price point for an RS7. And I think the price point for an RS7 is probably going to meet the demand for housing more than the higher price point. That's just my opinion. So there's a lot of things to think about there, but yeah.
Now, there was a statement made during the citizen comment that it was a 61 house minimum. Is that a true statement, or is it 61 house maximum?
Max, actually.
That's a maximum, okay.
Yeah, 61 max, and we had 43 by right, so it's just 18 different.
Okay.
That's 61 that they've been able to figure out how to fit on the site. The city code wouldn't limit them to 61. So, but I guess the question is, can you tweak this to fit anything else on there?
We have it laid out pretty much what we think it's going to need to be, and that includes the stormwater ponds as well. Yeah. But if you go, it's kind of interesting. There's some roof leaders that come off some homes that go through the curb, in the old part of the city, and they run that stormwater down through this property. But that stormwater that runs across there has contributed to some of these wet areas on the site. And it's so flat, it just basically sits in there in different low areas until it can evaporate. Not to say that there aren't some wet areas or potential springs. We did a development in Charlottesville, it's called Fontaine Research Park, which is now developed.
Steve,
And-
sorry, real quickly, I should have mentioned this earlier, but we don't normally force it too strictly, but there's supposed to be, I think you're supposed to have about a 6-minute time limit right now.
Okay.
So
Well, I was just going to say.
I'll go on for it.
when you-
If it's a long story.
Yeah, when
get
you
to
run into underground streams, there's ways, groundwater is ways to deal with that effectively. And you can build commercially or residentially over it, that's not a problem, so.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there anyone, I'll give you one more shout out if you want to approach the podium.
Come on up.
I'm Gary Gibson. I live at 2216 Bellevue Road. But what he was just saying about the stormwater runoff and everything, that's going to have to be taken care of whether it's zoned R12 or R7, so it really doesn't matter. I oppose R7. I think it needs to stay at R12, like the rest of the neighborhoods around there. And so the stormwater runoff is not a accomplishment for rezoning to R7. It's going to be done anyway.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
You can approach the podium.
My name is Julie Danich. I reside at 2408 Bellevue. I guess I'm the newbie. I've lived in my home about a year and a half. I live in Silver Creek. So I purchased my home with my husband to retire. That's our retirement home. So I don't know if right at Silver Creek, if we're at the cusp of the beginning, the ending of this R7, R12. Clearly they're going to build, regardless of what your vote or what you decided, there's going to be homes there. But I can see through my backyard the pink flags of something that's going to happen. I'm just not sure what's going to happen. That's right at the corner of Somerset. I don't know if a road's going to continue there with Somerset. The family that lives next to me has 5 little boys that run the entire neighborhood. They love to play. I can't imagine if a street continues through there, the safety for those children. And as the engineer said, the transients in the back. Yes, the transients in the back. We're well accustomed to them in the year and a half that we've lived there. Had I known them, that they were there, maybe I would have changed my mind about coming to the city. I moved from Augusta County, not used to them coming in my backyard. The easement, well, made phone calls to the Waynesboro City about mowing the easement that you all own next door to me to come out and mow your part of the property that you don't come out and mow. Yes, I take care of that and pay for somebody to take care of that for you. You're welcome. So I can't imagine this 10-foot buffer that's supposed to come along and y'all are going to take care of that with your homeowners association that's supposed to, somebody's going to take care of that 10-foot buffer. And then who am I going to manage with that? I definitely oppose this. One more problem for me to have to take care of in my retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Valerie Hancock. I live at 608 Sumter Road, in one of those front bare-looking properties. I have great concern that the city is going to come in and make everything bare, all the trees, everything's going out, and this is going to sit here for 5 or 10 years, and then they're going to decide, oh, that water stuff is just not how we make it work. I mean, most of the time I like the 13 or 14 deer that come through and poop on my yard regularly. Some of them look like they don't like the fact that I bother them when I'm out in my garden. But I'm just anxious that with all the other properties that are going to be developed, is this the time to find out that all those trees and all those weeds and all that stuff that the birds and the deer like are going to disappear, and we will have less green in our community, and we will just have nothing good. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Madison Carr. I'm at 2332 Bellevue Road, number 5 up there. Just a couple quick comments. I completely oppose this, but my husband and I have trail cams back there, so with the comment about homeless stuff going on there, we catch a lot of birds and deer and fox, but we haven't seen any homeless movement back there. And then also, I feel like he's downplaying the 18. We can look at it as 33% more housing rather than just 18 more properties. So no, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we take it back to the big shot? Mike Bailey, 2500 Davis Road.
Which one?
All right, go back. So,
Sorry, this one?
there's a clear divide there, right? RS12, we have the RS7, that's fine. I'm not opposed to, obviously developing that land. It's going to be developed. But the consistency of this neighborhood, RS12, you see a clear line. There's a natural line. There's a fence back there that's going to separate us. Now, with that RS7, that's going to be a park there. And a couple months ago, you guys voted on that. So that's going to be a natural barrier between the two neighborhoods. Obviously, I oppose it. It doesn't fall in line with the neighborhood. The homeless problem, I live 2500 Davis Road. I've not seen one homeless person back there. I know they're probably back there, but they're not bothering any of us. I've never once seen those people. Maybe by RG5 I've seen some homeless people, but not back there. Most of these lots are about an acre. So if you talk about 18 additional lots, you could just say that's 18 more acres, right? Roughly. So you're adding 18 more acres of homes where, again, to keep it natural, I don't care. R12, put 60, 40 houses back there, I don't care. But 60, too much. Thank you.
We're a little off the reservation, but it's not city code, so if you want
Okay, go ahead.
to modify it. Technically, the engineer, the applicant, is supposed to be able to speak last, so if you want to do multiple rounds, then you should probably invite them back up.
Okay.
But
Okay, look, I'll get the applicant to come back up to the...
I can get in touch with them somewhere along the way.
Okay, that suits you
You,
better, that's fine.
you do what you want, Shannon. You, like I said,
I'm fine having him come back up so you can ask, so everyone gets your answer. If the applicant doesn't mind approaching the podium again. We'll come on up then so she can ask your question.
These are great questions. I'm a Mennonite. I go to Springdale Mennonite Church, and my family's has pastored that church since 1890. We were part of the proposal to get the WARM program started here in Waynesboro, the Waynesboro Area Refugee Ministry. And I served at our church to get a program started where we actually host the homeless people. We do it every winter, and we've done it since the program started. and also manage a church garden, did for 10 years at our church for community people to use. But just to give you an example of homeless people, I mean, I don't mean to be insensitive, and I'm not, actually. We had a developer that wanted to build some trail systems in Charlottesville, and he just couldn't, he got in a tough financial situation. So I actually decided to employ the homeless people. I took them, gathered them up at a station, took them to Charlottesville, and they worked all day long, hand and shovel, right along with me, probably for 3 months. And it earned them a lot of income. And it gave an opportunity to take them to pharmacies and get them medicine and things like that. And I always paid them in cash because that's what they preferred. So I have a real sensitivity for homeless people. I don't take it that I was making light of them, but we've done other development in the area, and you can see signs where there's been homeless people. There's different things you can look for. Not to say that they hang out there a lot, but that they're a danger to the public. But they go where they can go, and that varies.
Can we address the specific question you have there?
Sure.
Are y'all the ones that been doing the survey?
Yes.
You guys, do my neighbors scared away?
Well, they have beards. If they had beards, that's part of our group. Oh, okay.
They were looking, I asked them, I said, what you doing? And the gentleman said, we're trying to find posts at your fence.
Yes.
Mark the property. And I said, well, that's not our property line. We found out in a roundabout way because property, when we bought our house in 90, they did not have to be surveyed. And we didn't, when we moved in, there were no disclosure laws. So we didn't know that there was a pipeline and those kind of things. We measured out our lot after they left, and we actually own property about 20, 30 feet beyond where our fence is, and we think that it was probably done away because of the pipeline that's behind our house, which technically it looks like the pipeline might be on part of our property. So I was just trying to see, we had to show them, we were showing them, and we couldn't find it because the metal of the pipe was not helping them a bit. So we don't have any markings behind our house. Just want to make sure that the correct surveying is done.
Yeah, well, the one advantage of a development like this is that any properties that are adjacent to the perimeter get partially a free survey, because the city code they require us to survey the boundary.
And y'all included the 10-foot.
We include everything of record: alleyways, right of ways, easements. Yeah. We include, yeah. So, yep, we're good. Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
That it?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're ready to close the public hearing on the request for Wells Enterprises construction agent for Valley Covenant Church of God, owner to rezone 0 Stonewall Drive, Waynesboro, Tex Mac 42-12-8 from RS 12 single family residential to RS 7 single family residential. So the public hearing is officially closed. Now it's time for us to discuss.
Can I ask a question? When you say Wells Construction, something Valley Covenant Church or whatever.
They're the agent for the Valley Covenant Church of God, who is the landowner.
Okay. Well, I called someone that is irrigating that church and knows all the stuff, and he said that the property was sold. So I was like, well, why is Wells Construction being an agent of? Why is the church being an agent or vice versa? And the church is telling me that property has been sold. Real estate agent told me something that was sold on the 13th of March.
At the time when the application comes in, we verify that the property owner at that time, their signatures on the application. So
it's after the fact.
If it's sold after that, then they would have been required to disclose that to whoever they sold it to. And maybe it's the applicant. I don't know. But we verified. I can't speak to that. I can just speak to that the rezoning application was legal, that it's, yeah.
Okay. Do you guys have some things you want to talk about?
Yeah, I got two things. One, we're not talking about a smaller house, we're talking about a smaller lot, right? So we can still put 5,000 square foot houses on these lots.
We do not have regulations related to home square footage, built square footage, right?
And then, is it true that the gentleman pointed out that the park was approved? Is that where that was? So that's never going to be built in that RS7?
I think he's referring to a little section along Pratt's Run here, which was dedicated by the developer to the city. It was not actually deeded over to the city. The provision is that the city at any time can request that property and turn it into a public recreational space. But yeah, it's right here. It's basically from this corner of the property and kind of to where this little notch is.
I think in our meeting, when we approved that zoning there, the property owner is maintaining that property, and he said he would give it to the city at any time, but we don't see a real benefit for the city because it's going to cost for upkeep, and it's in an area that won't be used that much. So
I agree. I just want to make sure that I had the right spot on the map.
Basically, when the
RS7 is ready for houses one day, right?
Yeah, the RS7 is all platted as homes. They actually have a little bit of common recreational space, but it's right down here at this far left corner. Actually, I don't know if I call it recreational space, but yeah, this here is all homes, platted all the way through.
Luke, when we were rezoning the RG5,
Yes, sir.
there was some talk about maybe sometime in the future extending the road that comes into that property, hooking it up. Of course, it will hook up with Tiffany there beside Martin's and Buffalo Wild Wings, but bringing it on out to Rosser. Will that affect this property at all?
It should not. So there's a couple of different things that are floating around. There was a long-time proposal for the Ludewitt-Rosser connector, which would run from about here along this south bank of the creek up to Ludewitt to where the movie theater is. That just didn't score well enough on VDOT's metrics to ever get funded. I kind of doubt it's going to be funded anytime in the near future. There was another discussion of extending Tiffany Drive here across the creek to create a north-south connection there so that you could create another way for this neighborhood to get into this area. There was right-of-way platted for that, but again, that's an expensive proposition. None of the developments around here are, on the hook to pay for that. And you have lots all along this road here, so Silver Creek would have to come back with a new subdivision to make that possible. But that's probably the more likely of those two possibilities. Either way, I wouldn't say there's anything in the next decade or two that's likely to happen, though.
And I recall that the real problem there was the cost of crossing the creek.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions for commissioners?
Well, I just have a couple of comments. We talk about the need for housing in Waynesboro, and with the new Amazon facility coming out and the number of employees they're looking at, we do need a lot of affordable housing in our area. And that's one of the reasons we've been approving the other our RS7 lots out on 254 to use our property wisely in Virginia or in Waynesboro so that we can attract people from these county jobs that are wanting to live in our city. So one of the reasons that RG7 is attractive, you get to put more on, but you're really not losing a lot of land. They're adding more to the existing land, and in this case here, it's 18 more houses versus, in over in Anna Marie, it's hundreds of houses. So, but that's my take on it. We've got a lot of businesses moving into our area. We're thriving as far as businesses. We've got some businesses in Waynesboro that's expanding, and they're going to need places for their employees when they start coming to our town. So we've got to plan ahead and have housing for them when they're ready to move in.
But in response to that, I think my concern is that where we've been doing it on the periphery of the city, it doesn't affect existing residents as significantly. It does affect them, but not as significantly. And we have an older subdivision sort of in the core of the city. And now I realize where the RG5 is, but that was all undeveloped property, and the only ones that really affected was, it was an old farm, basically.
Right. No, and I totally agree with you. After looking at the map and seeing the how that fits as a dimension of that neighborhood, I kind of like it the way it is. It fits, it makes that neighborhood fit.
And you brought up what has caused us to really look at the RS7 is the fact that we want to grow. And it's not only businesses, but all the people from Crozet that are coming this way.
I mean, they're coming, and you know, like it or not, you know, we're running out of room in Waynesboro, so we got to make the best use of what we've got. And once it's full, it's full. But you know, I listened to the presentations tonight, and just that little red square right there means something to me when I look at that, because it is a neighborhood there, and it all connects together, and then once you get past that, it brings you back out.
No, I mean, I think you got a clear demarcation of that RS12 neighborhood, and redoing that parcel screws it up. I mean, I don't know a better way to put it, because then you have like this little finger that sticks out into the neighborhood.
Which finger?
Which finger?
So I guess you just need to take a motion and see where it goes.
Yeah, I think we need.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to
Or ask for a motion.
ask, well, I definitely don't want to make a motion. I'm going to ask for a motion for the request by Wells Enterprises, construction agent for Bailey Covenant Church of God, owner to rezone 8 Stonewall Drive, Waynesboro, tax map 42-12-8 from RS12 to RS7, and I'm going to ask that we do a roll call.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so how we do this roll
Wait a
call?
minute.
They can motion and vote against, it's fine, yeah.
So we got a motion and we got a second on the motion?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so wait, I have to make a motion to make a vote and then we take a vote?
Well,
Okay, now we can just.
You got a motion on the floor, I think you can vote.
If you made a motion, you're making a motion to move it forward, right?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yes. No, we're making a motion to take a vote on it.
Yep. Roll call vote.
Well,
No, if we don't have a
I know we're
motion,
making a
if there's no motion,
well, you could do that. You can also vote on it.
Sorry about this.
That's okay.
What,
We're just want to make sure we do it right.
Mr. Airy, can I ask what your motion
Well,
is?
But if with the motion, we're making a recommendation to the city council.
Mr. Airy, is your motion that we recommend to city council that they approve or recommend that they deny? Or?
Well, I made the motion that, I see what you're saying, but if the motion's denied, that means that if
Right.
it's
You could-
approved, that means we're making the recommendation.
but if nobody makes a motion,
You can make a motion to, you all need to act on the rezoning according to the state code. You have to act on it within
That's
60
what I was
days. So you'll have to make take some action.
It may be that we're denying the motion.
Right, you can
Negative vote.
move to approve, and then you can vote against it, or you can move to deny, and you can vote either, so, yeah.
Okay, so you just need to make clear what your motion is.
Well, the motion was what you read, and so,
Move to approve is what you're saying, you're moving to recommend.
okay.
All right, so,
So our roll call vote is going to be to recommend.
right, so a yes vote would be to recommend, a no vote would be against it, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
sorry.
Okay, Larry?
And now I'm confused. So, I think denying 18 homes or 33% of those acreage, the access to faster police services and the ability to walk to school is a heady thing. And so I have my reservations about making the lots bigger. I wish that there was more connectivity with Silver Springs. So Where's my motion going with this?
Do you want it to go, do you want to go to RS7 or still?
Are you for or against the rezoning?
I want it to go to RS7.
Okay. Bobby?
I vote no.
You vote to keep it at RS12?
12, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I vote no.
I vote no.
And I vote no.
All right, so again, to clarify that that's a recommendation to City Council, so this will come before City Council at the first City Council meeting in May for a public hearing, which would be the second Monday in May. Same time, same place, 7 o'clock. Yeah.
And understand that the city council can approve it, even though we have not. And I'm not telling you what to do, but.
Right. Yeah, the city, the elected officials ultimately have to make the decision.
I want to say one other thing. I was a town attorney in Southwest Virginia for 35 years. And that was the most polite and informative meeting that I ever attended to, where there was a controversy, I ever attended. It just, y'all approached it properly, let's put it that way. No shouting and carrying on and threats or anything like that.
Can I make one request? The one thing I heard constantly when I was going around and getting signatures were from the people whose homes did not adjoin or were against the property, and they said, what are you talking about? So we were telling them, and then they were like, well, why didn't we get something? And I said, because it says that the property is not adjoining. And they would say, but this affects us too, because this is our neighborhood.
Well,
So
but
I
that's,
just wonder in future if when you do send out a letter, you send it out to all of them.
no, the statute requires the signs to be posted, and it's also published in a newspaper of local circulation. And, well, I understand, many people have that question, but that's what the statute says. But a certified letter has to go to the
Adjoining.
All adjoining properties.
Well, the only reason I say is because the signs are way back, and so a lot of people didn't even see them. So, but I was just saying, if there was ever a way we could do it other than that, they'd appreciate it.
I appreciate you all being well behaved, and I appreciate your attendance here. But please care this much about the rest of the city and come again. We value your well thought out comments.
Can I say there's one, there's two openings?
That's what they should.
Sorry, I didn't want to.
Is it regard to, I'm not closing the
It
meeting
is.
yet.
Okay, can I just say one thing just real quick?
Sure, we've gone way off the rails.
I'm sorry. I sat back there quietly. I just wanted to kind of see what all went on. My name is Julian Wells. I am the owner of Wells Enterprises Construction. I am a resident of Waynesboro. I was born and raised here. I've been here all my life, so I'm not looking to create basically any dysfunctional situation or anything like that. I am also a real estate agent as well. There are pretty much no lots here whatsoever. There's a minimal amount of lots. A lot of the development and stuff on the lots that are looking, that y'all did discuss, those lots, have kind of no effect on other builders kind of looking to build or to do anything like that, So what we're looking to try to do is not increase the amount of where the homes and stuff are right now. We're trying to minimize the cost and everything in order to be able to build and that you kind of keep everything kind of affordable. Because right now everything's just skyrocketing, even with our cost and everything else. So that's all I wanted to say. But I am Julian Wells, just so y'all know. Right now.
We're going off the rails here a little bit.
I know. I just
Talking
wanted to
about
kind of leave it
zoning,
there.
that's a whole nother discussion.
Take it outside.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, I have to ask for other businesses. You relax, we got a little step, we got step 6 here. That's all right, you just told it. Do we have any other commissioners' business?
We don't need to, no.
Okay, all right, so.
Very, very simple. Unless you have any particular updates you want.
Do you have any takers for the 2 vacancies?
For the,
Hey, folks, we haven't adjourned the meeting yet.
We
Could
haven't
you
adjourned
go
the
at
meeting, can you guys step outside? Well, you're welcome to stay.
You don't have to stay.
But you can step, we just can't hear you.
What else are you talking about?
We need a couple of people for planning commission.
we do have applicants. We forwarded those to City Council and are waiting on.
And we're going to vote on that Monday.
Great.
Okay, great. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Any other?
I make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor of adjourning?
Aye. Now we're adjourned.
I'm sorry if I lost you.